Hey guys, Youngblood with you, and what I wanted to do today was spend a little bit of time talking about the Gamescon presentation that we got from Chris Roberts and team. Not specifically in this video talking about the demonstration that they gave us, but more about the timeline of what we should expect to see in the upcoming releases. So we already know what's in 2.5 because it's in PTU today, and I've already done videos talking about it. But you know, things like Grim Hex and the Reliant and the Argo, we know those are in place. And naturally, even though 2.5 isn't live yet, we're already starting to look forward to what's going to be coming in 2.6. Now, 2.6 is going to be a very simulation-focused type of release. We're going to be seeing improvements to Arena Commander. And one of the big changes that they're going to be making in there is actually going to be flight and combat improvements to the SCM flight mode, which is supposed to be making dogfighting feel a lot better. And Roberts actually said that it's already in development and in place with the UK team who's developing it, and he said it's going to be something that we really enjoy. And I'm personally really looking forward to changes with the SCM mode because the flight model that's in place today has changed several times depending on which release that we're actually in, and sometimes you feel a little bit better, sometimes it feels a little bit worse, but bottom line is today, for me at least, it doesn't necessarily feel right. So getting things to a point to where it's a little bit tighter, it feels a little bit more controlled, I think those are going to be changes to SCM mode that's going to make dogfighting a lot more dynamic and be a big improvement overall. They're also going to be working on improving camera modes, so making things like chase cameras and more cinematic options available. You know, maybe like an observer cam, for example. I don't know if that's coming, but those are the types of things that they're going to be working on to really make capturing interesting footage a little bit easier. I don't do a whole lot of cinematic types of videos, but there's a lot of people out there that make content like that. And I think those are going to be really important things to have in place. Not to mention, considering we have a ship in game called the Mako, which is a Reliant variant, that's going to actually need some of these models that are built because you're going to be utilizing this ship to really capture the footage and probably end up selling off to news stations. There's also going to be some changes to the gameplay, almost like, and this was mentioned but not really expanded upon, like dying in Arena Commander and not coming back with a full suite of missiles. Or maybe you don't come back with all of your ammunition. And I think that's a good change as well from gameplay because sometimes, depending on the release again, missiles can almost be a deal breaker. And since you're not having to actually spend any money or in-game credits to repurchase those, there's a lot of people that'll come out and just fire off missiles, even though they can be overpowered. They're really annoying at times. Sometimes they crash out the server and they fire off their missiles, they get their kills, then they die on purpose and come back and repeat, and they end up really high in the scoreboards. So having something in place that kind of balances some of that out is a very important change and something I'm looking forward to seeing. We're also going to have the Asteroid Slalom racetrack at Grim Hex, and we've seen a little bit of this, just like with some of the Grim Hex teasers, but there's going to be, it's going to be a racetrack that's probably going to really benefit ships that are very agile over pure speed, which is going to kind of expand on the racing experience a little bit. But you're going to probably expect to see yourself flying through Grim Hex. We're kind of wrapping around some of the asteroids. This is going to be an Arena Commander, but I think it's going to help you practice, so once this is actually in place in the universe, you're a little bit more familiar with what that layout ends up being. And then they're also adding in a new combat map. They call it a new deathmatch arena. So we don't know anything about it. It could be something, it could be much bigger, it could be much darker, it could be much brighter, it could be more debris, less debris. We don't know, but there's going to be another combat map that's going to be coming. Now, the one that I think most people are most excited about is the long-rumored dead Star Marine. And Star Marine is coming, which is great, because I think in this game today, and I think if you ask anybody, well, not anybody, but a lot of people, their complaint right now is that there's just not a whole lot to do in the game. And it's in development, that should be to be expected, but adding in Star Marine, even though we already have some FPS application in the game, is going to add a whole new layer. It's going to help to bring in a whole new crowd of players as well, especially for those of you that are in large organizations that play other games and more of a community. If you've got some of those FPS players in your organization, they may be interested in actually getting into the game now based on having this available. But with that, it's going to be the tactical-based first-person shooter game that we know it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be team-based. It's going to be cooperative. It's going to be taking place in a new arena. So we're going to see things like on-foot combat as well as zero-G, which has been teased before. We're also getting improved motion of characters and overall stability of the controls and things like weapon handling, as well as some new character models that we're going to have in-game. I am assuming that's going to include the female model, but even if it doesn't, we've already seen some different looking characters in the game, and that has to do with some of the work that they've been working on as far as the overall quality of the models that are in-game and how they actually interact. Now, it's not just going to be those two things, even though those are probably the big ticket items, but the ones that always have people interested are new ships, and the Herald is going to be flight ready and hangar ready in 2.6. And that's going to be a really cool ship to have added. Now, it's not going to be able to really serve its true purpose of doing like information running, because that's not going to be an aspect of the game that's been developed yet. But it's got an interesting, it should have an interesting flight model. It should be very fast. It could be a new ship to have in racing, as well as just taking out for a spin. But the Herald being flight ready is a very cool addition. And then a surprise, and it was kind of funny, Roberts just mentioned this super casually, was the Aegis Vanguard Hoplite dropship. It's a variant of the Vanguard that's going to be used in Squadron 42 to drop troops off. And I've never heard of this being mentioned, and most of the people I was talking with, the patrons in our patron channel, they hadn't heard of it either. But apparently we're getting a variant of the Vanguard coming called the Hoplite dropship, specifically focused on being able to drop your troops off at a different location. So from a gameplay and combat perspective, it's probably not going to be a huge change from what we're familiar with the Vanguard, at least to start. But knowing that we're working towards more and more things that are tied to first-person shooting, I think adding in another dropship, especially since we know the Redeemer's a little ways off, having a dropship in the game is going to be a nice addition, because it's going to open up those aspects of play. Now, after 2.6, we're going to be moving into 2.7, but 2.7 is no longer going to be called 2.7. It's now going to be 3.0. And it was really exciting to actually see that 3.0 up on the screen when Chris was talking about all this. And the reason for the change in, I guess, nomenclature there is whenever they have a massive leap in technology and a massive addition of content, they decide to go ahead and up it from a decimal point to a full, I guess, a full integer. So we're moving up to 3.0. And it's going to be what he said, the big end of year release. So we're probably looking some point in December for 3.0 being, hitting the live servers, or at least PTU. He did go on to say that's our goal. It's not a firm date. He mentioned that people like to kill him when he actually says an exact date, because sometimes they just don't meet them. So don't get yourself too hyped up on it actually being a December or November release. It may end up being later, but their goal is end of year. Now, this is going to be a huge release, and it's actually the one that we got a teaser of in their demonstration that is making so many waves around the internet. And it's going to be the debut of planetary tech, which is going to give you the ability to land and explore on planets. And the Delamar moon that they landed on in the demonstration is 2,000 kilometers, and you can walk every single one of those. So, I mean, it is a big, big deal to have these types of things in game. It's also going to be bringing us the full Stanton system, which is going to include ArcCorp, Hurston, Microtech, Crusader, as well as new space stations, which he mentioned possibly 30 to 40 of them, and I'm guessing probably not 30 to 40 at release, but, those would be included, and that might also include, like, ICC probes in the comm arrays. It's going to have over a dozen moons and asteroid belts. And then they're also going to be bringing in Delamar. Now, Delamar is actually a planet, or a moon that's actually located in the Nix system. But it was temporarily, or I guess is going to be temporarily, brought into the Stanton system just to give us another destination to travel to while they're working on expanding that inner system travel. So it's going to be a big update as far as what information and what options we actually have to go fly around and explore. And it's going to make it just feel much, much more dynamic and interesting to be a part of the system, because you have so many more places you can actually go. It's also going to be bringing in basic professions, things like trading, meaning like buying and selling cargo. It's going to involve cargo transportation. Somebody pays you to take cargo from point A to point B. Whenever you start adding in cargo, it naturally is going to add in the piracy aspect, where you're going about trying to steal cargo and potentially ships. It's going to be bringing in the mercenary role, which is actually really like escort when we start talking about professions. You're being paid to protect people who are being paid to carry cargo from pirates who are trying to get their money from stealing the cargo. And then as well as bounty hunting, which is going to be earning money by going after pirates. Now, since we're going to have planets at the same time we're going to have bounty hunting, it's going to be interesting to see how dynamic and how fleshed out that actually is. Is this going to be the ability to capture people on the surface, or is it just going to be getting a credit for killing somebody that has a bounty? My gut says that to start, we're probably going to be seeing the latter. With the first edition of bounty hunting, you're getting credits for killing somebody who's wanted. So with that, obviously there's going to be a lot more to do. And I think that, again, like we talked about with Star Marine, right now it's, fly around and shoot people. Those are really the options. So getting those types of professions in is going to be a really big deal. Subsumption AI system is going to be coming as well, and this is going to be that really first iteration of a more advanced artificial intelligence for the NPCs. It's going to give the feeling of a living universe. You're going to start seeing diversity in the way that NPCs are actually interacting. They're going to be leaving their post and going to lunch, or they're going to leave their house in the morning and go to work, or you may look over and somebody might be blowing their nose. Those are the types of things that we're going to start seeing actually implemented, as well as planetary level AI, like day and night cycles on planets. And then that's also going to probably impact how the AI or the NPCs are actually doing their jobs and going about their lives on planets. We're going to see increased mission complexity, as well as like economy-driven missions, which is going to be giving us like dynamic missions to interact with NPCs and really get to the linear missions that we actually saw in the demonstration, as well as what we talked about in the latest Inbox episode. There's a lot there that's going to be giving us a more well-rounded playing experience, because all of a sudden you can pick up missions by talking to anybody. Now, Billy Joe, who's walking down the street, may not have a mission for you, but somebody might. You're not always going to have to go to your Moby-Glass to actually pick up a mission. You're just going to naturally and more organically find your way into things to do. We're also going to see the Item 2.0 system, which we've known it's been coming. It's been being worked on. It's been mostly in the background with all of these new releases. But that's going to include things that we don't consider. Like instead of the use icon, we're going to get those contextual, type of cues, like looking at a ladder and choosing the option of whether you want it to open or close, or maybe you want to climb the ladder, and if you want to climb it fast or slow. It goes beyond that, too, to things like the cockpit, where you can actually look at individual screens and interact with them. You may be sitting in a bar and look at your beer, and you can either grab it, you could decide to drink it, you could grab it and hand it to somebody. It's basically the new version and kind of integrates with the grabby hands information that we got a long time ago. So grabby hands may not necessarily be something that we can come to really know as a system. It's probably going to be more of our familiarity with Item 2.0 and how that impacts how we work within these systems. And then we're also going to see the Star Network 1.0. And for those of you that are unfamiliar with this, that's okay. It is a brand new term. It sounds like CIG came up with this name for it for some reason, but it's essentially the netcode. And for those of you that have been playing, whether it be live or the PTU, we know that we have what's causing, I guess, we're having FPS issues. It doesn't matter, especially when you get more and more people on a server. You can go play in free flight and you're going to have a really good, smooth experience with really high frames. But the second you get into the open universe and there's a lot of people that are actually starting to hit the server, the frames per second just craps out. And that's because of the netcode that's in place, and that's because it's a CryEngine netcode, which wasn't ever built to do what this game is built to do. So they're retuning, they're building their own called Star Network 1.0, which is going to be released here in this, in 3.0. And it's basically going to be a lot more efficient. It's going to be more well-rounded. It's going to give more resiliency. It's going to be increasing the FPS allotment that you can get. And eventually, at the end of the day, what you're going to see is probably more and more and more players being allowed onto every server because the system is running more effectively. And with that, that's going to pair really nicely with the expanding system. Because when you start talking about instances, I think we can start to see how this is going to be beneficial. The netcode improves, allowing for more people, but you also have a bigger universe, meaning that you're spread out more. So instead of having everybody flying around Crusader, you're going to have people around Crusader, around Hurston, around Delamar, around ArcCorp. There's going to be people that are spread out. So when you have both of those things happening at the same time, the overall gameplay experience has to improve significantly. So 2.5 is about to be live. 2.5 is a nice addition. 2.6 is bringing some long-awaited things like Star Marine as well as some flight improvements. 2.7, which is now 3.0, is going to be huge. Going to be available hopefully at the end of the year, and that's going to give us a lot more to do. So Gamescon 2016 was a huge event. I'll probably do a couple more videos regarding some of the specifics of what we saw, but I wanted to get kind of this timeline and overall expectations of what's coming out there. So if you have questions on any of this, please let me know. Otherwise, I appreciate you guys watching. Have yourselves a wonderful day, and take care.